We now transition to a pivotal panel discussion. It takes two to tango, shifting from product to partner focus. In this era of open banking, the essence of collaboration between banks and fintech is more critical than ever. We will explore the way forward in bank-fintech partnership, delve into the key factors banks consider when forging these alliances, and examine the emerging technological lending innovations that are strengthening these partnerships. Additionally, our panelists will shed light on the governance and compliance hurdles that are imperative to navigate in this collaborative space. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together as I call on the panelists, Mr. Rajeev Ahuja, Executive Director, RBL Bank, Mr. Tejas Goenka, Managing Director, Tally Solutions, Mr. Sabyasachi Goswami, CEO, Perfios, and moderator is going to be Mr. Sameer Singh Jaini, Founder and CEO, The Digital Fifth. Let's have a huge round of applause, please.
Good morning. I think it's wonderful to have all of you here. I think in Mumbai, getting everybody in morning is not easy. We thought when we'll have session at 9:30, it'll be tough. But I think so honored to have everybody here. And I think last session was amazingly good. So I think मैं सोच नहीं सकता था कि वो आप इतना देर बैठेंगे और बताएंगे. I think it was so frank and so detailed. So I think thank you, sir, for all that support. We are thinking that in this session, so just to get everybody right, there is a parallel sessions also running, so don't worry about that. There are things running, but as we catch up on videos later, I think let's go with the panel itself. So the logic behind this two to tango was simple. We always thought as partners as something which we will work only on business side, but there's always technology or any of these partners who are like more like a vendor, right? There was always that focus. But product was always a focus, right? So मेरे को savings account बनाना, product बनाना ये वाला. So that was the original focus, how India has been largely built. So I think it'll be good for us to understand from the leadership here, and very, very varied leadership here. I think different segments out here. So I think, sir, if you would spend a minute to talk about sort of how RBL has envisaged its partnership approach and how it has changed, maybe at a broad level. And then we'll take a quick view and then we'll go deep into questions.
Sure, Sameer. And first of all, thank you for having us here. And I think your second anniversary of this event, it gets better and better. But let me give you the last 10 years of our journey of focusing externally on partnerships to understand what's happening. And I think today, like I said, we are obviously better placed in terms of knowing where the business is coming, where it's going. But I will divide the three areas where we've partnered with young companies. One is really purely as a technology partner. So, you know, we're using a lot of their technology, which is now getting more and more integral to us. So it's no longer just a peripheral. And I think the good thing is that many of the technology providers are getting to become more like core. Second thing is we as a bank obviously have certain services which banks alone can offer. So we have also learned along the way on how should our infrastructure, a banking infrastructure, evolve to handle large volumes, complexity, things around pretty much typically payment processing, which is assumed to be fairly basic, but there's a lot of nuances around it. So that's one big area where it's us providing our infrastructure to our partners. The third area is where actually we see a lot more complementarity in some of the businesses our partners are doing, which we can help them not just by being their back-end infrastructure, but also figure out what more can we do for their customers. And that, I think, is the more, the eventual exciting one where you hope some of these things evolve to that extent. Also, Sameer, what's happened is that as the market has evolved, we've necessarily gone from a mile wide to endeavoring to go mile deep. So we are picking up areas which are of interest to us, outside of the first and the second, where we want to see the effort on both sides go deeper. Second thing, and as the executive director said, I think the whole thing around information security, data consent is becoming very integral. So we want our partners and us to have that mindset and framework. And this needs stamina and sustenance so that you build a very durable partnership so that it's not just profitable for us, it's profitable for the partner too. So that necessitates us to also up our game. We can't just be a peripheral, you do this today, do this tomorrow. We have to be very, very, in terms of very intelligent on what we want to share, what we want to do, and at the same time, be very open with our partners that this is where we want to reach. And eventually the partner succeeds and we will succeed there.
Fantastic. I think the original Partners Ka Bank, I always remember in DCB days when I used to be a CIO, when you would look at the ideas and what you guys were doing, I think you're far, far ahead of the market. I think that's a learning we were sort of able to pick up. So I think Tejas, you run, Tally is everywhere, right? It is Tally, and irrespective of what you do, you're on Tally, okay? I'm also on Tally. We tried everything, but Tally always is there, right? Now, you are India's largest business management platform of all kinds. I think everybody's there. Interestingly, on your database, maybe you will have everybody of every kind, but you don't have a database. That's how you approach, which is phenomenal. So now, when you're venturing into a lending space, how do you think that, what's your view largely on how banks and maybe embedded finance players or a fintechs can collaborate, and how do you see going forward? What is your experience till now?
Sure, I think, for us, very, very early days. I think the way we see this, Sameer, is the opportunity is obviously known to be very big. But I think that our realization, especially over the last 2 or 3 years, we've been thinking about looking at how we can better help the MSME segment. I think we realize there's a lot more that can actually be done in terms of either products or experiences. There's a lot of digitization focus, but a lot of scope for new types of innovation as well when it comes to financial services. So from our end, we are very, very early. We've just started our journey. And what we're also looking at, I would kind of echo what Rajeev has said. I guess stamina will matter in how a partnership would succeed. And I think from us also, we're looking at finding folks that we can work with who will take a long bet on the MSME space in general. There's also a need for us to become credible. There's a need for, we sell software, we sell technology. We're not into financial services by any means. So I think for us to get our little bit of, mustache and beard and all that, it may take a few weeks and months. But once we do that, I think it's probably going to be a similar view that Rajeev has. It's not going to be too many partners, but a few really deep ones that will matter.
No, I think this is again, in the original era, anybody you meet on the road was a fintech, and you try to do partnerships there. And everybody wanted partnership. There's no maturity, and you had one guy roaming on the road from each bank and trying to figure out whom to meet. I think that era has changed. I think it's intrinsically the way maybe RBL has done, Federal Bank has done, and now obviously a lot more banks have done. I think it's phenomenal. I think, Sabya, from your perspective, you have been there. You've been there for long, and as the largest B2B fintech there, where I think from a growth perspective, you're sort of taught how you need to be aligned to the market and keep working on it without too much of, showcasing. So what's your view on the whole partnership side? And do you see now banks look at you less of an API, but more of as a partner? Let's build something new. And of course, as the whole process is, there's also a look on the product as well, right? So when you do that, product itself improves from the banking perspective. So do you see that happening, or it's still early days?
Thanks, Sameer, for having me here. So I think it has been a journey, as you said rightly. We have been there. And if I go back and think a decade back, to be precise, it was First, truly a treatment of a vendor. Uh, my apologies to all the bankers in the room, but that's how it is. It was. Then we gradually graduated to a stage where we were at least called a partner. Today we have graduated further to be a consultant. So
Don't take my space, please.
no, when I say consultant means at least, that's where I would say that true partnership is, where actually we're sitting in a room and discussing the problem statement and trying to find out a solution instead of thinking just a particular API or a particular thing that you'll have to sell and move on. I think the world has moved from there, and how the banks and fintech partnership is truly discussing the problem statement. And that's consulting for me. I mean, it's not eating each other out there. For another thing that I think from a product space, and that's where you see so many products that has come out of Perfios, whereas we started from a single product to a multi-product company today, doing the end-to-end life cycle. When we say life cycle, is the complete customer and consumer life cycle. So starting from your origination to onboarding to sourcing to decisioning up till collections. That's on the lending bit. However, people still perceive that we are experts on the lending. That's not true. We service the capital market, we service the insurance, we service equally the NBFCs and fintechs in different space as well. So I think the partnership in true sense is when you get the meaning of solving a particular problem, sitting together in a room. And that's what our journey has been. And we see banks are taking interest to find those solutions. And the two things that I think what makes us stand apart is this is an evolving space. When you call fintech, and we call ourselves techfin instead of fintech because fintech seems to be too
That's
crowded.
what we're trying to call it as enterprise fintech now.
Yeah, that's what Mr.
Simplify it.
Vasudevan also said. I mean, there are 9,000 fintechs. I don't know where that 9,000 figure comes from, but we are a techfin. And the reason is because it's the innovation, it's constant innovation, and we see as an enabler to these institutions. That's where I would rest.
No, fantastic. Fantastic. So I think, Rajeev, you have the most experience in building it up for last maybe 7 to 8 years, 10 years. I think it'll be good for us to understand that typically when you go through this journey, how do you get it very strategically right? And how do you ensure that all organizations actually turn both around to ensure that it happens properly and maybe your learnings on the ground?
So, Sameer, I don't think it's easy to say strategically. It has to be messy. You will make mistakes. You will learn as you go along. And I think what's important is for us to be good listeners and good watchers of what's happening. I mean, today I'm sitting here with a little bit more confidence talking about our journey in 10 years and giving you a 3-point script is because we've been through a 10-year phase where it's not just us, it's really the partners who've helped us understand. Because I think it's very important to recognize that you alone cannot figure out everything under the sun. We moved away from a supplier-led market to a demand-driven market. Pretty much it's happened in front of us. A lot of it has been accelerated by common protocols, as the executive director talked about, the digital public infrastructure. So I think all of these things are good learning curve. I think what we've benefited along the way is every problem we have taken back internally. And in some senses, because I led this entire area, we were able to bring, capital allocation, risk management to the table very quickly. But I can tell you that, 3 years from now, if you invite me again, I will probably be still in a WIP process. So I cannot say that this is the most optimum. But what you do is, given your experience, you take a few bets. 1 or 2 out of 5 will definitely work. The other 3 will probably become a foundation for the next 5. And I think this is something which now, for instance, they just talked about MSME. If you'd asked us 5 years ago, all of us were consumer. But the consumer space is fairly well understood. I'm not saying the innovation has stopped, but I clearly see the MSME opportunity as an area we want to focus on. We're doing a few things. So 5 years from now, that could be something which people say, oh, we understand how to do business there. Though I don't think that 5 years is enough for that. So I think it's important to continuously experiment. And when you experiment, take the learnings and build it back into your planning cycle and feedback loop. And your team has to evolve. I think one of the biggest challenges I've seen banks, and perhaps because we are a newer kid on the block, is the internal departments which are driven by product. That makes life very tough to move things around. I mean, forget technology. Actually, I don't have a problem in technology because people always say legacy technology. I think that can be sorted out eventually. It's the product. People have built products over 25 years and they've benefited the institution. So it's not as if it's been done for purpose. How do you bring seamlessness across many products? Ultimately, the customer doesn't care if you're representing product A, product B. I think that is a tougher part which needs constant hammering, cajoling, and sometimes you rule by diktat.
No, fantastic. I think coming to the MSME side, if you look at retail side, and I think this is what has happened, that if you look at unsecured retail, is largely led by either fintechs, or at least it's known that its process is clear and it'll reach. If you need a loan, if you go to get rejected, you will get rejected. You know it, you will get rejected across board. But in MSME side, it's not easy, right? I think MSME is still, to some extent, is like a crime, right? If you are running a small shop, you're a criminal, right? Because you think that you are not professional. Second, your knowledge levels are very poor. You don't know tech, you don't know process, and I don't know how you're classified that your employees can be hired, can be getting loan, but I don't get. Let me tell you honestly that nobody chases me for credit card. Okay, nobody chases. I tried in a large bank to take credit. So my approval for a home loan was 48 lakhs. And my team was typically 91, 1.5, 2 crores. Okay, so that's how it is. So, movie mein tha na ki MSME wo kya, mera baap chor hai types, right? So it's like a crime. It is what it is, right? And sometimes you will feel very awkward about it. But become one and you realize where you are. Anyway, so coming to that, so MSME mein zyada kaam nahi hua hai, and even today digital lending for MSMEs has not happened much. I think when we think about all those big names, actually the numbers are not very large and still led by NBFCs rather than anybody else. So I think, how do you see as the largest player in this market, how can you help the market? Or do you see on an overall basis, even if it's not specifically your organization, what's your view how these partnerships can work to actually bring credit to the MSMEs at maybe 12%, 14%? Salaried class at 12, 14, 15, 16% and MSMEs at 30%. It's a crime actually.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think our first goal will be to be able to figure out how a bank can lend to you. No, but in all seriousness, I mean, this is exactly...
I think by that time, they realize I'm too old to be given loan to, right?
No, I mean, but in all seriousness, Sameer, I think this is exactly what happened during COVID. We saw many people, and India survived. Like, we somehow made it through, and we saw many of our customers really struggling for cash. I'll take another simple example. We've got this 45-day MSME mandate. Ki, if you buy from an MSME, you have to pay within 45 days. It doesn't matter what your credit terms are. And I mean, it's a tough ask. So I think the way I kind of see the space itself is first asking that, have we understood the space? Have we understood the space from a lendability perspective, from a credit services perspective, and who all have understood it? I think there is some learning curve that we will go through. There are definitely going to be mistakes that we will all make. But ultimately, I do see that a bunch of new types of products will be focused around MSMEs. I do think that in a few short years, with the efforts that RBI is also making, with people like us, banks, NBFCs are making, it won't just be digital driven lending. I don't think that's really the answer per se, but it will be unique experiences and products that are tailored for businesses, let's say, like yours. So in my mind, I think that you will find a little bit of up and down, maybe in the next few months, few years. But if we're at it and if we're still kind of seeing that opportunity, I think there's a lot of innovation that can take place. I'll take one example as a point. Trade finance, if you take, right? Trade finance is largely available to MSMEs that are operating and serving large organizations, blue chip, credible organizations. But I think that history and experience of MSMEs serving other MSMEs can easily be taken into account to provide trade financing options. But it's very difficult for a bank or an NBFC to do that. And with partners like us, it makes that possible. So I'm just giving an example, but that's where I see a lot of possibility.
No, fantastic. Fantastic. So let's look at the banks or NBFC's situation. They have their branches. Branches will always give numbers. They're not going away any day. And I think it's an optionality to the customer that he needs branch or he needs branch. I don't care about it, right? Even today when you read newspaper, I do read newspapers. How many of you read newspapers right now? Yeah, so optionality is there. Hamari marzi. Okay. So I think branches will remain. Digital channels of the banks will remain. Partnership with fintechs will remain. Partnership with tech companies will remain. So what should be the ideal strategy, tech stack of these banks, NBFCs, which will sort of help in handling all channels, all product? How would it work, right? Because one LOS platform handling 20 systems, I don't know, 20 products, 20 partnerships, I mean, crazy. So how would it work overall?
See, first, for this, you have to go back and understand the two set of cultures that we are talking. Unfortunately, we missed that very critical point.
Is he audible there?
No?
Maybe.
Okay.
Can you just help, please?
Am I? Okay, I need to speak
This is
louder
better.
maybe. Okay, so the cultures are important to understand because while we are talking of partnerships and the technology companies, fortunately, unfortunately, the culture is very different from a culture of a large institution like a bank. Right? Very, very nimble-footed, frugal, kind of quickly get to success point. That's how the fintech world works or the technology world works. Banks is highly regulated, will think about compliance, governance, all of it. And both has their own sides or point of views. And there are merits. So the convergence of both the culture is not an easy task, which I think for the last 10 years when there are bank, fintech partnerships that we have been talking and the tech stack we have been talking or the journeys that we have been building, unfortunately, we have never respected this point, which is very crucial to this. So it's time that we respect both the points. While a fintech tries to integrate a journey, there is a delay. And the fintech will look at it from his point of view, why bank has delayed, which is what Rajeev alluded a minute back. Now, bank has his own point of view because I'm a governed institution. I have certain set of compliance to follow before I give a go-ahead. And this is a set of culture. I think unless that is married, I don't think there's a particular tech stack that will evolve on its own, number one. Number two, when we're talking of tech stack, we are looking at the future, keep the customer in the center, and what we are saying is the customer experience has to be superb. So for each of two sets of organization, the customer is different actually. It's the end consumer like you and me, but there are many consumers in between. The credit guys, the ops guys, the branch guys, right? The channel partners. For a fintech, there are separate set of customers alongside. How are we looking at solving those customer pain points and not just the end consumer, which we are saying build a superior experience? Third, while we do the first two, how do you attract the customer to the proposition that you are making? Which means it has to be compelling. And for that to happen, the tech stack has to be solving the micro API structure. Today, all the tech stack is little maybe old, which cannot. I mean, for its time, it has served what it had to. Today, we are patching around and saying, okay, it should work, it should work, it should work. It will not. So it has to be given a time to build it ground up, and they change. So I think the right tech stack will be, which will address all of this. At the same time, I mean, it has to be fast. So it's not an easy answer. I don't think anybody has a right answer to it. People are experimenting, and there will be success, but we should give it a time. That's what I would say.
Thank you. Thank you. Maybe we just have 7 minutes to go, so I'll keep it very sharp, short questions. And one experience I had is that I used to head corporate and treasury at one point in time from a tech and I don't know what you BSD and all. And once I entered the treasury room, one of the guys told me that how can a tech guy enter the room? Okay? And I was actually setting it up, right? So just amazingly how tech has changed, right? And I was maybe the oldest CDO in the country. And that in those days, CDO was like a non-useful guy whose job was to be like two hack-on types, right? And when you guys were asking that tech, I mean, why did you take this role, which is you were reporting to operations, technology, and digital ka role nahi hota tha. You should report to us, to business, tech, and operations. And you get butchered by all of them, right? So that was the role, but I think that's what we loved. But from a tech perspective, tech has evolved a lot. So what is your view on tech right now? Where are you gung-ho about at the management level? Do you think tech is getting discussed at now at the board level? And what's your view generally on partnership and tech at the board level?
So tech, clearly, if I see 10 years, say, it's become a center of discussion from both perspectives. One is to obviously secure yourself, to meet the changing requirements, the changing threats. So that's one clear discussion in the board, and I think it's very important. Second is, how can this become a big transformative, capability? And I think one of the things, and I would say that younger entities, if they have to make a mark, because ultimately, I think where we are headed is that even if you have some vintage, but if you can use technology, data, and leverage partnerships, you can change the economics of doing business. You can expand the market size because, earlier to do a loan of 5 lakhs was a lot of paperwork. Today, a loan of 5 lakhs can be done in a jiffy, assuming you got the right credit underwriting. So I think it changes the economics of doing business materially. And in a lot of ways, this is the whole disruptive innovation from the bottom up, which is going to play. So a lot of your technology choices, a lot of your organizational design, can actually become a stumbling block if you're addressing a market opportunity which is changing very fast. So getting technology to play a front and central role in terms of how we define our market segments, go to market, risk management, and as Sabya said, have a thing which can constantly evolve. I mean, we can't do it every day the way some of the tech-first companies do it, but we have to get to a greater speed. Now, you'll make choices. You can't go and change everything about a bank, and you should not even try. I think there are things which you should be clear about that you will not change. But I think, Sameer, this is again, I would say, is a learning curve for everybody. And we'll keep getting better at it, we hope. And then we rely on people like Sabya and others to help us get better where we can't do it ourselves.
Fantastic, fantastic. So I think, Tejas, you have been in a different direction all the time, right? You are building something which is purely on the PC side, working very well, and a lot of people are very careful about data privacy and all of that. So I think, where do you see what kind of technologies you are right now targeting upon? What are things which, from pure tech perspective, you're looking at, ki kahan pe kya ho sakta hai? And how will it help the market? I'm just being conscious about time, so we're slightly off. So we just 2 minutes, you can quickly give me an idea what tech you are planning to use.
Yeah, I think two broad themes for us. One is around connectivity. And obviously connectivity, maintaining privacy, security, all of that becomes very, very critical. There was some article, I was on the flight today in the morning, someone played some deep fake to steal $25 million from a colleague, which is crazy. So I think that privacy security will be a centerpiece in a connected world, but the question is what opportunities can a connected world create for businesses? We think there's a bunch more that can be done than what's already been done. We're working on things like that. How can you connect businesses to each other? How can you make flows between businesses a lot easier? Things like that. And obviously the second one is what's happened in the last few months, right? Around intelligence, AI, a bunch of that. And that can provide a whole bunch of new experiences, cost benefits, and outsized productivity gains than you ever would have imagined. So yeah, I think that's the broad direction that we're taking.
Okay. Very specific question to you, Sabya. I think you are amongst the deepest on tech side, right? And you're forever there. What kind of tech is getting built on your side, which people should be looking at right now? We spoke enough about blockchain, but let's talk about real tech, which you guys are working on. which is helping the banks and NBFCs across, not just in India, but outside India as well to do well. So maybe a quick view on that.
So something that we always believed from day one, made in India for the world, that's something that I like. Build something which is kind of segment agnostic, domain agnostic, industry agnostic, which is what I think we have worked upon. Some of the things that is getting built and appreciated in the industry is much to do with the compliance and governance and fraud. That's the favorite. And this was spoken about earlier as well. As we see more and more digital transformation happening, we should be more worried about the frauds that will come our way. So we need to build technology to address those. Some of it they just spoke about the deep fake. It's something that we are working upon as a company. So, and that's much in progress because we are seeing some of those. Cyber thing that we are looking at, which is an interesting thing, not so much in India, but globally that's already there and it has picked up. If you look at very, very developed economies like US and Europe, where the cyber insurance is something very big and they don't have much technology to solve for it. So I think those are areas and technologies which will be appreciated and we are working towards.
No, I agree. I think as the progress of tech will continue, I think our view is that MSME and retail will be fully digital. The fraud will be the biggest risk will be ahead. And I think as much as people will invest in the tech on the business side and building it, I think a good portion will go actually to control that frauds.
Yeah. Sameer, if I can just add, I mean, people in the room, while we
need to be a bit louder and closer.
People in the room would appreciate that account aggregator has solved the kind of friction that we used to see from a data acquisition point. One belief that I keep talking in the closed rooms, but I thought I'll just touch upon here because it's a larger forum, that because the data is coming from the source, there is no fraud. Just wait for some more time. It's not true. There are different sets of fraud. So please don't think while you are building a journey or building a program or thinking of a portfolio quality, because it has come from a source, there is no fraud. There are different trends of fraud that is emerging. So we all need to work towards that, coming together, collaborate, and build some solutions towards it.
Now, I'm just thinking that where will be the fintech session happening or summit happening of all fraudsters, right? Maybe they will have more money and more structure, I guess. Yeah, with this we close. Thank you. I think this was fabulous and I'm so honored to be with you, right? Thank you. Thank you.
Cheers,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was indeed a very thought-provoking session. Thank you, Mr. Sameer Singh Jaini, for moderating the session. Thank you, Mr. Rajeev Ahuja, Mr. Tejas Goenka, Mr. Sabyasachi Goswami. Thank you for your time. Let's have a huge round of applause for them, please.